Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Podcast Demastered. I'm Chelsea, and I'm here with Wade as always. And today, we're talking about a crazy, wonderful film called Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Now, I know that at our year in review episode, I already said that this was my favorite film of 2022, but Wade has now also watched the film, so I'm very curious for us to discuss this movie and definitely hear more of his thoughts. And we're just going to kind of dive into this movie. And so we're probably going to cover some spoilers. So listeners, if you don't care about spoilers or anything, or if you just want to hear what we had to say, feel free to just continue with the episode, but we're just giving that warning now. And so let's just dive right into this movie. So Wade, you just watched this movie recently.
Yeah. Yeah, sure did.
Yeah, I watched it actually again to get ready for this episode to just, have everything fresh in my mind. But what were your initial reactions after watching this movie?
Like at the end of the movie, I was just like, I was filled with a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of emotions just from the end of the movie, all that stuff that happens at the end. I was very emotional from that, but like, I was just very happy that a movie like this exists now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just crazy. I had to pause several times throughout the movie to process, like, what just happened? Or, like, what the heck? We had such a blast watching it. It's just so amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you had a blast watching everything. I was hoping you enjoy it, but it's definitely a movie that I feel like is also very strange and out there at times, but definitely has a deeper story to it. So it really could go hit or miss, I think, for when people watch it. I will say, watching this movie again, wow, I appreciated it the first time I watched it, but somehow I was able to appreciate it even more. And those things at the end got me still.
It's such a wacky movie. Like, it deals with something so huge, so hard to like comprehend, which is like part of the point of the movie. Like the fact that the multiverse exists and you exist within the multiverse in an infinite levels and infinite different people, but it's still you. Like, you are still you. And then like the actual plot of the movie, like the personal plot, is something that is so grounded. I feel it's so personal that it's crazy that they got two completely like different feels in the movie. Basically, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have like the personal drama, like mother to daughter, on top of this humongous existential nothing matters. Nothing matters because everything exists and nothing is new and nothing is different. Like, it's crazy that you get both of those things put on top of each other. And I think in the end, it's crazier still that like the smaller problem still wins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the answer to that problem is like the answer to the bigger problem too. It got me really good.
Yeah, it was so smart, so well done that you can have these crazy things come together and it makes sense in the end and it's able to tell a powerful story. Now, I know we've kind of alluded to what the story is about. I feel like we should try to explain it.
Ooh, we should try.
Yes. There's different levels to the story because I feel like you can look at it face value. So when I saw the first trailer when it came out, I guess it was probably the fall of 2021 was when I remember seeing the trailer. It was just crazy. It was just kind of like the close-up, I think, of Evelyn's face and her just like traveling through like the multiverse. And it was just like, that was like all you were given. It was just like crazy context. And I'm like, I don't know what this movie is, but I want to see more of it. So I think people probably have heard like, yeah, it's about the multiverse, but no, there's so much to it. Like you said, there's a big heart to it. So I think we should start with first, like their main character is Evelyn.
Miss Evelyn Wong. Mm-hmm.
And she's a mother, she's a wife. Her family's struggling with their laundromat being audited by the IRS. And that's where all their problems stem from. Just honestly, in the first 10 minutes, you get to like all their dynamics, so well. Like,
it's a lot. Yeah, like there's so much packed into that 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact that all of that stuff happens in the first 10 minutes, though, I think, like, that's why a lot of these things are problems. Is because I feel like that's their life, too. Like, everything is packed into such a small amount of time all the time. And they don't, like, they keep themselves so busy, they don't have room to, like, relax and stretch out and like check in with each other. Like Evelyn with her husband Wayman, and then Evelyn with Joy, the daughter. They don't have time to spend together, and that's, I think, where a lot of the problems come from, the personal problems.
Yes. And then I think I'll just mentioning, so like our main character Evelyn, she is played by Michelle Yeoh. I think a lot of people probably know her from various martial arts films, or she was also in Crazy Rich Asians and Shang-Chi. But okay, did you know who the husband was?
He looked so familiar. He sounded more familiar, I think, but I didn't know who he was.
So that's Ke Huy Quan, and a lot of people know him from when he was younger. He was in The Goonies and in Indiana Jones.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. It was very interesting because, yeah, I'm like, I know the voice. I recognize it. And then I was like, oh, yes, I know who this is. It's been a long time since I've seen those movies.
And he was... He did such an excellent job in this movie, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, jumping back and forth between, like, different versions of himself. They all act so different, you know, from each other. And, well, like, Michelle Yeoh does the same thing, right? She has to jump back and forth between different versions of herself, but, like, for her, they're still all kind of the same. Like, the same kind of person. Mm-hmm. But Wayman changes, like, a lot.
Yeah.
But I love his, like, the regular Wayman that we meet. I think he's my favorite still.
He's just so sweet.
He is so sweet. He's goofy. He doesn't take things seriously, like, not to a fault, but, you know, Evelyn is very, very strict, very uptight, on schedule, got to get everything done because that's what's demanded. And then Wayman is there to kind of balance her out, to slow her down when she needs to, you know, as they say, smell the flowers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very true. And then, so our other main character, or one of our other main characters, is Joy, the daughter, who's played by Stephanie Hsu, who, this is like her breakout role. And I thought she was freaking fantastic in this. Like,
absolutely.
Wow.
And she got to do so many cool things in this movie, too.
Yes.
Like,
that, talk about somebody who's playing a ton of different characters, just doing a ton of things at once. Like, wow. And then we also had a surprise person who stuck around for, like, the whole film. Jamie Lee
the
Curtis.
Queen.
Yes, back at it.
When she first shows up as the IRS agent, I was so happy. I'm like, oh, I love to get to see Jamie Lee Curtis. And then the next time you see Jamie Lee Curtis, you're like, excuse me? And then the next time, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
She just keeps coming back.
It's just, yeah, it's something else. But I guess focusing more on the story. So, yes, we talk about the IRS. So it all starts up because they're trying to... Well, it's like multiple things are happening that day. They're going to have a party later at the laundromat. But before that, they have to deal with the IRS.
Dun, dun, dun.
Where everything comes out.
And it kicks off.
Yeah. Which I think this movie does a really good job of explaining its version of the multiverse.
Yes, absolutely.
I think there's some times where some movies either get like so much into the science or so much into some things where like you feel like something might be missing or something doesn't quite make sense. But I feel like they did a really good job. And because like we said, like the first, like legitimately the 10 minutes, it's like you were packed with a ton of information. Bam, you're at the IRS and you're in the elevator. And that's where you get introduced to the multiverse.
Good old Alpha Wayman.
Yes. Which is just so interesting about like, yeah, the different consciousness and putting yourself into their... Like, okay, now I can't even explain it. It made sense of the movie, but trying to explain it. It's just, I don't know. There's so much to talk about this movie. It's hard to focus on a particular thing.
It is. I was having this exact problem the other day. Would it help if we, like, tried to explain, like, how they explain the multiverse?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, so a universe is created when you do anything. Instead of doing this, you do that. Instead of doing that, you do this. All of those little changes create, like, branching universes. And then the bigger those decisions are, like, sometimes they're really small thing. like setting a piece of paper down on the left side compared to the right side. But sometimes they're like they get bigger if you're making like life decisions and stuff like that. And then the bigger the decision, so the more your life would be different from that point on, like the farther away that universe becomes. So you have closer universes with small little differing details, and then you have very, very far away ones where your life could be completely different. Just absolutely different than what you currently know. And actually we get so far away in this movie that like to the point of like humanity evolving in different ways.
Yes. Which that part is so funny. Yes. Oh, the hot dog fingers. I love the introduction to that because it definitely takes inspiration from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey,
yeah, with the music and then like the apes fighting each other, and the one with the normal hands is the one that's defeated. And then they all have hot dog fingers.
It's so disturbing, and it's like actual hot dog fingers, like no bones, just big thick sausages. But your fingers, were they like also squirting like mustard? Is that what was happening?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where that mustard came from. That's
gross.
It was there were some
gross.
romantic things going on in those scenes, so
inappropriate.
Yes. Well, but I love in that universe, they're like, yes, they have evolved, they have taken over with the hot dog fingers, but then you see them using their toes like hands.
Yeah, like they get so good with their toes because like they can't control their hot dog fingers because they're just
flopping around.
Like literal hot dogs. Yeah. Like, so you see, is it Jamie Lee Curtis playing the piano with her toes?
Yep.
Playing Claire de Lune. Yeah, you see that.
She's wearing that arm brace on her foot that she was wearing in.
And she's wearing... yeah. It's just those scenes, the hot dog finger scenes, just... Whoa. They'll take you by surprise every time.
They will, but it's also like a sad story too.
Oh, you mean like with the characters like in that universe? That is really sad. That is really sad. But seeing that universe helps Evelyn understand what is her name? Deirdre?
Oh, yes.
It helps understand the IRS agent Deirdre a little bit better too. Because like they're going at it throughout most of the movie like cats and dogs.
Yeah.
But not at the end.
Nope. Which is just, it's true, like, Evelyn needs to experience the multiverse in order to understand basically, like, who she is, what she wants in life, what is in front of her, she needs to recognize. And there's, like, because it's just really interesting, because, it has a lot of action in this movie, a lot of fighting, because it also has the multiverse plotline, which you can kind of simply say is, like, Evelyn's the supposed chosen one to take down the evil. She's so normal and boring that she's the perfect candidate for this.
I loved that.
Yes.
Like, she has tried and failed to do so many things in her life. But she has become the chosen one. Yeah. But, and all that is, I guess, what got them in trouble with the IRS, too. Trying to claim so many of those failed hobbies, I suppose.
Hobbies, yeah.
As business expenses.
Which...
So...
I mean, I think that's also such a good reflection on, like, society or people in general. I think it's always, difficult, like, finding your way in the world. Like, finding what you want to do or having so many passions trying to figure things out. And it's, like, it's kind of, like, insulting to her character to be like, you're just the plain, boring one who couldn't accomplish anything. And I'm like, this plays into that bigger picture, the bigger role of, like, I think sometimes people feel like they're lost in the world. Like, what's their purpose? What's going on? What are we doing here? Are we making a difference? And, like, so many layers to this movie. So many ways I think people can connect. And, I mean, like, I almost think that this movie, people could get a different take, people can have different things that they take from this movie. And it...
like, just different perspectives. We'll see the movie in a different light. And the, like, focus of the story or the moral of the story will change depending on what your perspective is.
Yeah. It just... So, let's see. I'm trying to continue more with the story. I'm trying to think about this. Like, getting more introduced to the multiverse, the explanation of it. And so, like, This movie also has little title cards. It's kind of funny because I always laugh because there's certain like indie type movies that always have like title cards to make things like part 1 and they call it something and like part 2 and stuff, which some of those I think are really funny and like ridiculous. They don't matter, but
Yeah.
it also fits with the title of this movie, but it actually does like encompass what happens in each like section, because you have part 1, which is everything, which is her experiencing the multiverse, traveling to different areas, learning all about it. And then one thing that's funny about this is that with the multiverse, you can also take on certain abilities from your other versions of yourself.
Your other versions of yourself.
Yes, by doing really weird, unexpected things that are very bizarre.
Very bizarre. Like, well, the whole point is to, like, you're doing something that the current you normally wouldn't do, in order to, like, slingshot your conscious, basically, to, like, a different universe. And there's, like, a system for that, like, trying to find a specific skill or something like that. But, yeah. But then you're caught, like living between the two consciousness, kind of. I love how they did that. Like, you don't just, like, drop dead and enter another person. Like, you're stuck between, and which can, like, cause, like, brain damage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I liked how they went about that.
Definitely, yeah, which leads into Evelyn dealing with that. But about the unexpected things to do, that was the one scene in this movie that got to me, that like made me cringe. In the beginning with the paper cuts.
Oh my god, what? And he's like, you can't give yourself a paper cut if you're trying to do it to yourself.
And what was it? He had to give himself 4 paper cuts. So he did
4 paper cuts between his fingers. Yes.
Oh my gosh,
between
that scene.
Fingers.
Oh gosh, that scene was so well done,
God.
but it was so awful. I was just like,
yeah, like every time he succeeded, like I winced. I was like, oh god, no.
well, I think it was just everything about the scene, the way that it was shot, like the way the music was playing, way they were described, like it was just so intense. And yeah, even watching it again, I was like, this is actually worse watching it a second time because I know what's happening.
Like, it's this scene. Oh god, no.
Yeah. So, like, for example, like with this paper cut scene, like there are some very other odd things that happen, really weird things that I think does play for a lot of laughs and everything, like, which adds the absurdity to it. And then you have these other scenes where it's like very serious, but like the multiverse.
Yeah, like brings you way back down to earth. They juggle that really well.
Yes, I agree. And relating to when you were just saying about the multiverse branching off and how we, not only do we see the hot dog universe, we also see some very obscure universes, like where they're piñatas.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Where they're rocks.
Yes, where they are rocks.
Yeah, which is crazy because, you know, like, I think the assumption to be made in that specific scene is that, like, you know, they said, oh, we're in a universe where, like, life never sparked. And so the world is just this. And so the two characters are just rocks getting to exist in no place, basically. But they get to do that because they are those two, like, they have those powers, you know? It's not like everybody is just a rock and just sitting around. You know, they're getting to live something that's not actually being done in that universe. Yeah. That's kind of what I took away from that.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, because they definitely really break those boundaries. And yeah, you see, because yeah, they are those characters that can go to the other universes. I was like, oh, I kind of wanted to talk about the rock scene, but should we wait on that a little bit?
I think we probably should.
Okay. So you find out, okay, so the overarching, like, there's a villain in this movie, or at least it's portrayed to be the main villain. Yes. Which is revealed to actually be the daughter, but she goes by a different name.
Yeah, the Alpha Wayman and, like, his little organization in the Alphaverse, like, take all of this time to set Jobu Tupaki up as this huge, like, multi-dimensional force that's destroying universes, and, like, we have to stop them at all cost. And then you meet her, and you find out it's just Joy. It's just their daughter.
Yeah.
Although I guess she's not just her daughter.
No. Yeah.
It's the Alphaverse, like, where Alpha Wayman comes from. It's that Joy, but her mom in that universe had, like, experimented on her and pushed the limits of her mind too far in experiencing other universes, and Joy basically got the power set to where she exists in all versions of herself all at once, which is just absolutely bonkers to think about.
Yeah. And like, yeah, so with the Alphaverse, yeah, that Evelyn is dead. And most versions of Evelyn is dead. So that's why they come to the like quote regular world, which is where that Evelyn's at. But yeah, like you said, yeah, she experiments on her daughter because her daughter is the one that has the most potential, because the Alphaverse created the technology to be able to verse jump. And I think there's so many ways to take about like how Joy is just like has all the pressure from the family and experiences like not only just experiencing all the versions of herself, but just the baggage of everything and about life, about her family, about
and a lot of it I think just really just simply has a lot to do with her, like, you know, she's the second generation of an immigrant family. And I thought it played a lot into that kind of thing too.
Yes.
Where those kids tend to have lots and lots of pressure because they're supposed to be normal Americans who just fit in and are successful and all of this other stuff, but they also have to be perfect members of their family's original culture and things like that too. Yeah. There's a lot of expectation there.
And I think specifically, so when we see actually Evelyn verse jumping and stuff, we like before like she gets like kind of calibrated into the system, we see like a quick like flash through her whole life, and we see like that version of herself, and that's when it shows like the pinpoint, like the different important parts of her life that branch out. And we see that, you know, she grew up in China, and she fell in love with Waymond, and she chose to go to the United States with him. And her parents were very disappointed in her and her ability, like about, you know, you're a disgrace to our family, like we're going to disown you pretty much. And you see her like building this life with Waymond he purchased this laundromat and they grow it and struggle with it and everything. And there's parts where she's trying to contact her family and her dad never calls her back or anything, never responds. And then what's another big part of the setup of this movie is that grandfather is introduced at the very beginning. Like it's all about like who's going to take care of the grandfather. You can't tell him, because another thing to mention is that Joy has a girlfriend, and that's a big thing, that like Joy wants her girlfriend to be a part of her life and be a part of her family. And Evelyn doesn't quite know how to deal with that. So she doesn't...
Well, she thinks she's handling it pretty well. Right. She thinks like, she's like, oh, I let you do this. And, you know, like, I understand. But she's not, in her subconscious, she's not completely on board with it yet. And she uses her dad, who does come to visit, as like a shield in that way, kind of. Where like, they're like, oh, you can't tell your grandpa.
Yes.
You know, Becky's just your friend. You can't do that because he's a different generation. He wouldn't understand.
You're going to give him a heart attack.
She used that as a shield a lot. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want that. And, you know, that was something that she had to get over eventually, too. Which, when they finally get to that point in the movie, I was like, look at her, some growth. But then, like, you don't get the happy ending out of that part. Like, that doesn't lead to where Evelyn thought it was going to lead, you know? Like, she didn't think, like, oh, this will fix my problem, me, like, accepting this and moving away from my dad's expectations and stuff. Like, that didn't fix my problem because that just hurt Joy more. Like, it wasn't about Evelyn. I think it was hard for her to see that. Yeah.
Well, I think it's also, too, that it's so much more complicated than just simply just saying that one thing and just claiming to fix that one thing.
Right.
You're not completely realizing the whole problem, which I think is so important. I think it's also like relatable in general too, just like seeing those things through so many levels, through either like being part of an immigrant family, being, you know, that just simply the mother-daughter relationship for people that come out to their families and dealing with that, just generations dealing with, I mean, there's so many levels, because it's not only like I think you see mostly the mother-daughter relationship as like the overarching, like, bigger relationship in the film, but you also do see her relationship with Waymond, because another part of this movie is that he wants to divorce her. Like, he's gonna...
or at the very least he wants to like use a divorce as like a springboard to try to fix their relationship.
Yeah, like to get her attention. Like
that's how I saw it. Yeah, that's how I saw it at first. Well, not at first, because you just see the papers. But then he brings that up. He's like I don't want a divorce. I want you to listen. I want you to talk about our very complicated life together. I want you to be here in this moment with me so we can fix it. And then as Evelyn goes through the multiverse and grows with all of these experience, but then she gets with Joy, and Joy teaches her that nothing matters because everything already is in all forms, so nothing can really affect anything in any way. During the scene where Evelyn actually like signs the papers, like I like panicked in my head for her. I was like no, that's not what he wanted.
Yeah.
Because she was very much into that nothing matters kind of persona there, close to the end, and that really got me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotion, I think, there.
No, definitely. That like, and I think it also plays into like serving her like those divorce papers and stuff, like getting her attention. It kind of lets her like set up two different ways, like that she could take the easy way and just continue to live life without talking about these things and like dealing with them. So it's also like, no, she signed it because she didn't want to work through anything or realize there's so many other things going on in life. And then
what's the point? What's the point in it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just, I don't know.
This movie has so many layers and paths and everything. There's so much going on in Evelyn's life in such a short amount of time. Like she herself is kind of like bombarded with all of these major problems all at once. And I think that with her being able to escape it, being taught how to escape into the multiverse, it kind of helps her get away from those problems. Mm-hmm. But then as she escapes from the problems, she realizes like how much she loves those people in her life. And then which starts affecting, I think, like all the other places in the multiverse for her. Because in one world, this is a problem and she's feeling a way about it and she doesn't want to deal with it though. So that comes out in a different universe, where she'll like act out in that universe to try to save that Waymond or something like that, instead of just bringing it all back to the center and focusing on her specific life.
Yeah. And I think too, with like her experiencing the multiverse, like, and she thinks it's cool that she's able to experience these different versions of what if things, but like they all have their challenges, they all have their drawbacks, like they're not all perfect. Mm-hmm. And she has to realize that she just can't live in one version and just try to escape, because there's more to it. And then I was thinking like I was gonna say, okay, because like, so there's the part one about everything, and then part two is everywhere. So like you're introduced to everything and then you're seeing all those lives. And then that part two has a cliffhanger.
Oh right, the movie ends.
Evelyn's dead. Credits roll.
I forgot about this.
Yeah. Like everything is just building and building up, like fighting in the multiverse, like trying to take up, and then then she dies, supposedly. Yep, credits roll. Which when that first happened,
and like everything is like starring and written and directed by Evelyn.
Yes. And that's when you're like, hold up.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. When that first happened, what was your reaction to that when it started the credits rolling?
Oh, I was like fully prepared. I was ready. Like, nope, we're not done yet. It's too bad. You're not catching me on this one. I laughed about it, but I was like, I'm not getting out of my chair yet. We're not done here.
Yeah. It's like, excuse me. I'm like, no. I'm like, I've seen this in other movies before. Thank you very much. This is not how it's going. And then, you see the credits and it's Evelyn. Then you're like, okay. Also, it's like a perfect way to be like, no. We're not going to just end this story quickly and just Evelyn get her way of not dealing with everything. We're going to go back to what's going on. But I think there's so many interesting things, because then the overarching thing is about the everything bagel, the whole about. Because
I loved how they structured that. It, like, whenever Evelyn finally gets to meet Jobu Tupaki as Joy, and realizes that she doesn't want to kill me, so what does she want me for? Mm-hmm. And so Joy starts talking about she's gained these powers to not only exist within every universe at once, but she can basically like change anything into anything, like any matter she can change into anything else, because it's just something she can do with this like multiversal like awareness. And so what is she said she literally takes everything and kind of puts it together. And the shape that she got out of it was like a bagel.
Like an everything bagel. Yeah.
Like an everything bagel. And of course she seasons it with all of these things.
Yep. And then it's just, yeah, it's the answer to all answers. Just go into the everything bagel and just escape it all, pretty much, and just because nothing matters. And she wants to be at peace.
And that's what her thing is. She just wants to be at peace. She wants to just not exist. She wants it all to be over. And while the Alphaverse are afraid that will wipe out the multiverse and all of its function, but Joy just, all of her expectations from all of her lives, in every universe and everything else, she just wants peace and quiet. She just wants it to end. She wants nothing.
And she brought Evelyn into it because she was also hoping that Evelyn might see something different. Might also just give her a way out besides her, like, last call situation. But then Evelyn sees the same thing and also believes that nothing matters.
Right.
And I think, and then, like you're dealing with that, like, that whole scene, which takes place in this, like, big white, like, I don't know, what is it, like, structure, big hallway, and then it's just, they're all, like, dressed up like a cult, pretty much, all, like, in white.
I loved it. Yes. And can I say, Joy has, like, the best outfits I have ever seen in anything ever.
The amount of costume changes and stuff that went into her outfits and just, like, what they even look like in general, it's crazy. Like a wrestling outfit at one point, and then like to just changing at one point. You see her like fingernails change colors in the very beginning before you see who she is. You see her long fingernails streaking across this side of the wall, and you're like, who is this crazy being? And then her outfit in that world with the big bagel, like all white, like that,
and her hair was like
slightly Victorian. Yeah. Yes.
Kind of. Yeah. I love, and like, and she had like all the cult members there, and they were like in their robes, and
Jamie Lee Curtis was there.
Jamie Lee Curtis was there, and you can't, like, they have their little like welding visors because they're not supposed to see the bagel.
Do not look. Be here and worship it, but do not look. Yeah, that. So then, like, you have her fighting this scene, but then you also have like all the Alpha like verse people have come into like the main world and trying to take out like the problem and situation. They're all fighting, and I feel like that's when, like, I think that's when everything's just happening so much, and then that's where we eventually get transported into the actual rock scene, like, for the first time. Like, you've had so much chaos. Yes. Like, this movie has been going. Like, there's no really time to breathe. Like, you're, like, slowly learning information. There's fighting. There's so much going on. And then all of a sudden it just culminates to this moment of just dead silence. And that's when you see the rocks.
Just two rocks sitting on a cliff.
Yes.
Looking at the sky.
I have mentioned before that this is, like, the rock scenes are, like, my favorite scenes in this whole movie. There's just something about it, how this movie has just been so, like, loud, like, pretty much, and just everything's going constantly, and then you just stop. And everything's quiet, and you just start reading text. The text of them talking to each other, of it being mother, daughter talking to each other about what is life, why does it matter, what's going on, and just, I think it's so powerful, too, because it just gives you a moment to breathe as well.
Yes.
And then you start taking in, like, everybody's just existentially thinking about what is going on here. What is
It's a nice little recharge before the WTF moments begin.
Exactly, yes. And it's just, I honestly think it's like, it was the best way to handle it, because I can't imagine the scene hitting as hard, at least personally for me, if it was them actually talking about this and discussing it, like sitting
right
and everything. It's just, it's just something so simple. It's, yeah, like I said, it gives you time to relax and take a breather and just focus on the text. You don't have to be worried about lots of action on screen or anything like that. It's just fully soaking in those words. At least that got to me. So
I really, that scene, and then the couple times it jumps back to that scene after that is so, it hits you.
Yeah.
And it's not like a one straight emotion kind of thing. It's very, there's a lot, because you're processing a lot from what's happening before. And then when they start talking to each other and you're like reading what's going on, that the moment that they're having is really important. And it really pulls you in. It gives you a lot to hold on to as they as they start heading towards the end and like clashing with each other and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because, yeah, it's like basically like the huge tipping point, and then you keep seeing like, yeah, when you go back to the rock scenes and go back to other scenes, it's her, I guess, kind of moving the story forward a bit more. Like, eventually, Evelyn's almost just like sick of her husband. Like, I think that's the big part where, like, in the one version, she stabs him in the side with a piece of glass. And then that's also when she signs the divorce papers and everything.
Like, all her frustration with him
Yes.
comes out in multiple universes all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the events in those universes start to move forward. And then Waymond, like the core of Waymond comes out where he's begging, please stop fighting. Because when he gets stabbed is like in the middle of like a big fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
Poor guy. He's like, please stop fighting. Please listen. Please talk. You know, and you just see all of that. I don't even know. I don't have the words to properly like describe Waymond. Just he's so calm, he's so kind, caring. It's just you can see all of that in his relationship with Evelyn, and she starts to see that too. But not just her Waymond, every Waymond.
Mm-hmm.
Like he exists in every universe basically as the same person with all of the same core ingredients that makes her Waymond so special. And having that overwhelming force throughout the multiverse in that one moment, I think really brings her back to herself, pulls her in.
Definitely, yeah. And like, because one thing he says is like being kind.
Just be kind.
Yeah, because he does recognize that the world can be harsh and everything, and that sometimes, like, yeah, life can be meaningless. Like, what's the point? But he just holds on to the thought of being kind. That's just something that you can do, and that's something you can hold on to, because you're living this life one way or another. So
right.
Might as well focus on some positives, hold on to something good.
And then from that, you get all of that Waymond all at once, and it just like I think it reflects back on the audience too.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Evelyn in this moment of chaos, and she's ready basically just to go down the Jobu Tupaki route and just destroy everything basically.
Mm-hmm.
Let everything fall apart, and she realizes she has this moment. Well, nothing may matter, but that doesn't mean that things can't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's important to me, it does matter, regardless of what I could be or who I could have been or the choices that we make. Here, this is where I'm at right now, and this does matter to me.
Yeah, so true. And then that's when she realized, yeah, violence is the answer. It's finding those moments of joy for people. And one thing that it was such a great callback, because these googly eyes of what she uses towards the end of the movie, she puts a googly eye on her forehead, and we have seen this.
Opens her third eye.
Yes, for real. And these googly eyes were at the beginning of the movie. Waymond would put them randomly throughout their home, randomly on people's
on everything.
Like laundry and stuff. And Evelyn was just so fed up with it. She found it so stupid. She's like, it's getting in the way. But she had that connection from her husband, that discussion about being kind, and just was able to like use something that she thought was dumb from him, but that he put a lot of, like kind of love into that. And that's what she uses as her third eye, gives her that ability to bring joy to people. So then you see everybody from the Alphaverse and everything, everybody that was fighting her, finding, happiness in the unique things that brings them joy, pleasure.
And all of their weirdness.
Yes. And then that's when you have more of that heavy discussion between actually Evelyn and Joy, and then also the disconnect about, yes, I accept you presenting her to her father, well, Evelyn's father, and saying like, yeah, this is Joy and her girlfriend, and then they get into more about what's really the problem, what's difficult, and how their relationship, that wasn't the only problem, it wasn't perfect. And then her also stepping away from the shadow and expectations and finally speaking up and speaking against her father, Evelyn speaking against her father about her issues, and just all culminating together too.
Yeah, it's just, and those ending moments, those last few lines, like they have such a clarity and like powerful effect. I felt it was just so nice, and because Joy's just like, but but like we've seen it. Nothing matters. Like it, even when I'm with you, everything is just awful. Like when I do this, you do this. When I look like this, you feel this way, and everything is just awful. And I don't know how what to do from this point on. Besides leave and like never come back, basically. And Evelyn, she accepts Joy's feelings on that. And she says, and she's like, you're right. Like I do feel this way about things and this and this and this. And things get really shitty a lot. And because that's just how I am, and I'm so sorry for that. But regardless of all of that, there's nowhere else I would rather be than right here, right now with you. And I just wanted to like bawl.
Oh, I honestly, I cried in the last like 20-30 minutes of this movie, like just straight through.
Yeah,
like
right?
Everything just got to me. And even the second time watching it, I was like, darn it, man, this movie is good because it's kidding me again. Like, I don't know. It's just so many emotions. I just get so sucked into the moment with these characters, and just like, also just so many moments of just like, you can see it, like relatability in like your life or just experiences or anything like that. It's just, I don't know. It just really hit me hard. But yeah, no, it's, their conversation is just, it's so well done. It just, it speaks to the relationship too, because it's also like, well, in a sense, she does like let Joy go too, being like, I accept like who you are, and you have the ability to like go on your own. And like, that's also what she needed to know. Like, they were like trapped in that relationship and struggling to understand each other in a sense, and also just like, they need to be their own people too, but also there's that things are okay.
Yeah. There's just so much to pull out of like the whole movie as a whole, but even just like small little scenes, like there's so much that happens between the characters, like from moment to moment. You could sit there and just analyze the crap out of all of it.
Yes.
We could be here for hours and hours.
I know. That's so true. Yeah. It's just, at face value, people may think it's just, oh, it's a crazy multiverse movie where a woman tries to save the world. Sure, if you really want to think that's that. But no, and I think you can't even just simply say that. Like, I think that's just kind of silly to say that, because it's clearly this, like, the story about Evelyn and her relationships to her husband, especially her daughter. Like, that is definitely at the forefront. It's not really even hidden. Like, there's different layers of the relationship that are kind of like, you like slowly have to like dig up and everything. But the movie is just, it works so well together. And I think about it and I'm like, the absurdity and stuff helps make things lighthearted, makes things fun, but also just helps you process the deeper levels of the situation.
For real, it gives you other things to think about. Like you have your deep personal emotional things. And then they're like, but here's something else that's ridiculous to think about.
Yeah.
Like multiverse silliness. Like, this is miles away from, like, interpersonal drama and feelings processing and stuff. And we'll jump back and forth for a bit, and at the end, we'll just shove it all in together, and there you go.
Yep. Absurdity that actually has a purpose. It's quite amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. Like, we could talk about this movie forever, and I could personally praise it forever, but yeah, because I didn't want to give this all away in our year in review episode of digging into all the spoilers, because I also wanted Wade to experience the movie as well and not spoil it for him or give him ideas of why it's a good movie. So,
well, I'm glad because I hadn't seen it. I'd wanted to see it like since it came out. I just had never gotten like the opportunity. And then you sent me that digital code, and life was good. And we sat down fast and watched that sucker. We're so excited. We both just loved it.
I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it. And just, it's also interesting because this movie is kind of long, I guess, for most people's standards, because it's a little less than 2.5 hours long.
It's like 220 or something like that.
But I mean, I'm going to be bold enough and say that this movie is a nearly perfect movie. Like, it has everything going for it. And like, we just scratched the surface, like, honestly, with just the story and like the deeper parts of it. But I would love to talk about another very important part of this movie that it really hit me the second time, because I was like, oh my gosh, I do know what's going on. Like, the music, the way that music is used in this.
Yeah. Like, unless you're thinking about it, like, the music just blends straight into the movie. Like, you have to be in the middle of the moment and be like, oh my gosh, like, oh my gosh, there it is. Otherwise, it's just part of the experience for you. Yeah. It's just, there.
Yeah, it really adds to it. And there's certain parts in the movie where, like, if you actually listen, there's like some like words like being spoken, or like, I don't know if they're actually lyrics about like things that are going on in that scene, and just helps further enhance it. And it's, some of it's kind of funny, and then other parts it's just like, also music in films like really gets to me, like especially in emotional scenes. Like I'm already like listening and like getting involved in like what the people are discussing, but then you have music that just like that pulls at my heart.
Right song at the right time.
Yes. And I'm like,
absolutely.
no, stop it. You're doing too good of a job. And it's all original music for this. Like, it's just like, you can hear like there's a kind of like a constant theme that goes throughout it. Like there's these like, I don't know if it's like more of a, I should not be the one discussing music, like a piano to it. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. It was really well done. And also just the mixing of just also the sound effects with everything. Like, okay, one of the things I really love the editing in this movie. This movie took a lot of work to pull off. Like, because we mentioned before about like, you know, people having costume changes, going to different, like, going through the multiverse. Like, there's quite a few times where there's like multiple scenes per second of you just see like Evelyn flying through. Like somebody spent all the time coming up with those specific shots. Like you see some of them. Oh, because there's at one point where they're in like a 2D animation world, and they're like a kid's like crayon drawings.
Yeah.
And there's one where like she looks like she's like an anime like world, and just different things. And just, do you want to hear some interesting facts about this movie?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I want to preface this. So this movie was made on a really small budget, and this movie finished filming actually probably March of 2020. So right at the start of the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
That's when then like we saw the shutdown in the movie theaters and everything. And it was distributed by A24. So the directors were talking to A24, and they're like, do you want this movie to be at least like released now? Like, do we need to hurry up and finish like the visual effects, editing and whatnot? And they're like, no, like, take your time on this. Like, movie theaters are shut down. Nobody's going to the theaters. Like, just finish it when you finish it, which I think is also like amazing to hear that from a big company. Like, take your time working on this film. And so it's honestly kind of I almost think it was a blessing, because they actually changed the story a bit too. I read that they wanted to focus more on the mother-daughter relationship, and I'm like, that was such a huge part of this movie. So I don't think it would have had been as effective if it had been rushed out quickly.
Right.
And so because it was also a small budget, they had a small team working on this. So people were at home editing this film, and there were only about 5 visual effects artists on this film.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Like, I mean, and you know, this isn't a Marvel movie, but like they have a ton of effects in this movie. Like clearly you go through the multiverse, you go through these different worlds, like focusing on all these different scenes that were green screened, everything. Just, it's amazing, like having a good team and having everybody just collaborate so well and being able to just get stuff done.
Right. It's such a small team. Like, I mean, the good thing about that is that you can have a goal and you don't have to, like, I guess, compromise too much, you know? But then given lots of time afterwards, like, that's such a blessing almost.
Yeah. And then I read, so it's like nearly 500 shots that 5 visual effects artists worked on. So craziness. And then also one editor, which I just read, interestingly enough, like the editor edited on a really old Mac computer in their living room on the film, because everybody was working from home, and edited the crap out of this film in the best way possible. It's just because then, so they got like plenty of time to like work in post-production and everything as film, because this film was released to the general audiences like in early 2021. I think it was probably around March or so, and bam.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And the directors were so they're called Daniels because they're both named Daniel, and so they directed and wrote this film as well.
Oh, so is that what they were called, the Daniels?
Yes. Yeah, because
I saw that and I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, no.
What is that?
Yeah, 2 guys.
Well, weren't the Russo brothers involved in this too?
Yeah, they were producers, so they put money into it.
I saw their names pop up and I was like, yeah, I see you there.
Yeah, that I thought that was
crazy.
Like, yeah, I was like, that's interesting, but I'm glad that they saw potential in this movie, because that's great, because now everybody can enjoy this film.
seriously. The way I suppose it was intended to be.
Yeah. I think that there's so many smart things in this film. Like, I could just analyze it from a film perspective of just talked about the editing, talking about the effects, and just because not even just the shots where she's traveling through like the multiverse and like each quick frame just showing like a different version of herself. And then the amount of like crazy costume changes that happens with Joy towards the beginning of like, and that when she's fighting the people in the building.
The hallway of people. Yeah.
Like, of how perfectly matched
like
everything
she
is.
is just an explosion of everything.
Yes.
Of costumes and props and good God almighty.
Yeah, those costumes killed me. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I'm also just like, the costume designers for that, like, coming up with like these mismatched things, and just, it's just, wow.
They reminded me like a lot of like Japanese idols, like pop idols. They gave, like, every costume gave me that kind of vibe where you have this like cutesy girl uniform, but then like there's always some kind of a theme to it, right? I like the one, it was farther into the story, but the one where it was like made out of stuffed animals.
Oh yes.
But it wasn't just like, they didn't do like the Gaga thing and take a bunch of Kermit dolls and just stick it to the dress, you know? It was like
puppy
I don't know,
sleeves or
it's hard to
something?
explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like there was just the fabric, but then like the stuffed animal was like coming out of it. Like it was weird. But it was so freaking cool. Jink Joy was my favorite.
Yeah. No, that reminds me, because you're thinking like, you know, almost like an idol, like at a couple times she did actually have like that puffy microphone on, like the headset.
Oh, she did, yes. She did. Well, and like her makeup and like her hair and everything was just, sometimes like her makeup was like the best part of the outfit. Like you look at the outfit and you're like, holy crap, that is so freaking cool. But then like you take 2 more seconds to look at her and you're like, oh, but the makeup.
Yeah.
But the makeup.
For real. Like, yeah, there's just so many layers. There's so much thought and care they put into how this movie looked. From the editing, the effects, the costuming, the makeup. Like, everything has its place, has its purpose, and it's a visual feast.
It absolutely is. And I love how Jamie Lee Curtis was dressed throughout the movie. Like, is so not Jamie Lee Curtis at all. I remember I watched an interview like forever ago where they were talking about like her just so homely character design in the movie. And they were basically like, yeah, so we're just gonna kind of give you this turtleneck. And she like puts the clothes on and she was like, well, can I just like take the bra off then? And they're just like, yeah, do it. Why not?
Yup.
She's like, I've never been more comfortable in a in a costume before.
Yup. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect from her in this movie, and also just like, yeah, that she was a recurring character, and just, it was fun. I hope she enjoyed making this movie, because it seemed like it was a fun movie to make.
Right. This movie has so much. Like, if you like interpersonal character-driven stories, yes. If you like kung fu action movies, yes. If you like abstract, ridiculous, what the hell's going on movies, yes. Like, it's all right there. It's right there for you.
And it's specifically abstract movies that do actually make sense in the end. Extra bonus point there.
Right, and it's not just like a big, like, WTF moment and then credits. It's like, no, like, we're gonna explain this.
Yes.
We're gonna finish this up.
Agreed. So yes, highly recommend it. If you haven't seen this movie, give it a watch. There's definitely something to be taken out of this movie for sure. So one other thing I do want to mention, just something for fun, because I'm big into checking out the Oscars and everything, looking and trying to guess what's going to get nominated. I hope this movie doesn't get snubbed a whole bunch. I hope it actually, like, personally does get nominated for things. And so also, I think when this episode does come out, it will actually probably be the same day that the Oscar nominees are released. So listeners, you can let us know how wrong we are when we make these guesses.
Well, hopefully we're not too terribly wrong. We'd love to see this movie get what it's owed.
Yes. Oh my gosh, for sure. So I think it'd be kind of fun to kind of guess, or at least hope, what we think that they have potential to get nominated for. Now, the Oscars did release their short list for a couple categories, and unfortunately, Everything Everywhere All at Once was snubbed for VFX and makeup, but I know there's lots of movies that have come out in this past year that have had crazy visual effects and makeup as well. But I hope they get a costume nod, because we've already talked about how crazy the costuming in this movie was, how many costumes they made, how many things, because it wasn't even, like, we've only talked like Joy's costumes, but everybody else had costumes too. Everybody else was wearing something different in all the scenes. So, and I really hope there's some, I personally want some acting nods. Like, I would like all three of the main characters to get it, but it will probably see it potentially for Michelle Yeoh for Best Actress and Ke Huy Quan for Best Actor or Supporting Actor, depending on how they categorize him.
Yeah, I really hope so. Like, I know that, like, Austin Butler might get on there for Elvis for Best Actor, but, like, I don't know. Like, I liked the Elvis movie. It was fine. We watched it in one of my classes. Like, it was okay enough to play, and I thought that Austin Butler did a good job, but I don't know. Elvis is such a, like, tone-wise, you know, Elvis is a very specific kind of thing, but Ke Huy Quan, he branched out. I mean, he was doing so much all the time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I'm like, yeah, Austin Butler would probably get a nomination, but there's definitely room for some other people to get in there for sure.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
My like, I also hope, I just want this movie to get in all the categories. Let's be realistic here, but
everything.
Yes, everything.
Everything,
yeah,
everywhere.
Exactly. And win them all at once. So.
Yes. What a theme for the year.
For real. But I would love to see a Best Picture nominee and a, like, editing nomination and writing. So basically, like, almost all the categories. But I think there's definitely some really standout things that this movie did that definitely elevated it. I mean, I'm biased because I said it was my favorite film of the year, but there's plenty of other movies.
But isn't what the Oscars is? Like, isn't it all biased?
Yeah. Everybody has an opinion, so yes. Yep. It's their opinion, so. But I'll be very curious to see what gets nominated. I've been trying to watch some other movies and stuff that might get some nominations, but I still can't get this movie out of my mind.
It's going to take a while. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Movies like this, I wish I, like, taught, like, a film appreciation class. We couldn't watch this movie, I think. There's that one, you know, that one specific scene with the fighting in the hallway.
And then the other seating in the scene in the office with the awards. Oh my god,
the scene in the office. Yes. And, you know, the first time I saw that award, I like the row of them sitting there, I was like, ew. Like, who designed, that's gross. And then we got back to that scene and I was just like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Like, they knew what they were doing, that little callback there, and then
Yes, they did.
You know where it's going.
Damn it, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Do you have any other final words about this movie?
One thing, did you catch the lyrics thrown out in the middle of the movie when Waymond is explaining the multiverse? Or no, it's after that. It's when Evelyn gets back from her first, like, major trip, I think, through the multiverse, and he looks at her and she's like, "But how did you know, like, it was me or something?" And he said, what did he say? He said the lyrics to a song, and I caught it. I was like, wait a minute, like, that's messed up, yo. And then no, that was intentional. Your clothes never wear as well the next day. Your hair never falls quite the same way.
I remember,
like, he could, like, tell that about her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from a song. That's from The Story of a Girl. Like, think back when we were little.
Okay.
But you'll like literally hear the song start and you'll be like, oh my god, it's that song. But no, he says that to her and I was just like, what? And I went to look it up afterwards and like when they were writing that scene, the person was just like, yeah, like, I had a muse and I was writing stuff down and this just seemed so natural. Like, these words just fit so well. And then I looked back at it later on, and I was just like, son of a bitch. That's a song.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I know what song you're talking about. And I was like, I didn't connect that at all. And I clearly don't remember those lyrics, but wow. That's very interesting.
Well, it was like just the way he says it. Like, I think he said it in a specific way on purpose when they were filming. Because, like, the cadence, he says it in the same cadence as when it's sung, which I think is what tipped my ear off. I was just like, wow, okay. So a small little thing, but
No,
it made my heart happy.
That's a good fact. Nice. Very nice. Well, I think that's a cool way to end this. Lots of tidbits in this movie. So. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed our discussion about this movie, and let us know if you have watched this film and what you thought of it. You can let us know on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PodDemastered. And also, we're totally open for you guys sending us emails. It could be about everything everywhere all at once, or about any ideas you have for future episodes, any feedback. You can email us at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, so you don't miss out on any of our episodes, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. Share it with somebody who you think might enjoy it. Also, feel free to leave us a review. 5 stars are cool too, but, we'll take any review. We appreciate you guys, and we'll take any feedback you have for us.
And wanted to stick something in there. By the time that this episode airs, our next episode will be our long-awaited first thoughts at Hogwarts Legacy.
Yes.
So we just wanted to let you know that that episode will be a day late, as we'll be trying to get in a little bit of that game to share our thoughts with you. So it'll be coming out on Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Yes, that's very true. Yes. No, so that'll be a change, but then we'll be back to our regular schedule. But we just want to get those actual initial first impressions for you guys and play some of that game. So yes, that will be on that Wednesday, the February the 8th, will be that episode.
Yes.
Be on the lookout for that episode. And as always, thanks so much for listening to this episode, and we hope you tune into the next one. See ya.